The problem is not that Igbos are lost. The problem is that many Igbos do not know who to follow. And that is why our identity is being diluted every day. For Igbo origin, you don't follow noise. You follow those who know there is a system, who know there is a structure, and who know there is a truth. Across Igbo land, there are men and women who hold the real knowledge of Igbo lineage, Igbo tradition, and Igbo identity. Not opinions, not social media debates, but truth passed down correctly. If you are Igbo and you care about who you are, then you need to be here with us to the Igbo Viva. Subscribe now. The Igbo Viva is documenting Igbo identity correctly, completely, and for the future of Igbo people. Professor Eze, you're welcome once more.
Thank you, sir.
I can see that there are so many works you brought here as evidence. The father of it all, which was Professor Dike.
Yes. Kenneth Dike.
Kenneth Dike. Is it the same as Onwuka Dike?
That's Kenneth Onwuka Dike.
Yes. Good, you know. So I can see that you brought us his book. This one is the one he wrote about the Aro of southeastern Nigeria.
That's right.
This work. This is one of his works.
Yes. He and one
others called Felicia Ekejuba. And he also wrote on trade and politics in the Niger Delta.
That's the book that established him.
Okay, this is the one that...
And this is a pathfinder in terms of history of Africa.
Fantastic. So
yes.
This is the authority.
Indeed.
In trying to develop the history of
African history.
That is not messed up with European bias.
Well, because Europeans said Africa had no history.
Okay.
So it took Dike. Actually, that's why anthropologists are also fascinated about him.
Okay.
Because before him, everything about Africa, they said they didn't have history. But he said they did have history. What do you imagine they have been doing in all those millennia? And so, in his PhD, yes, that's his PhD thesis, developed into a full-length book, Trade and Politics in the Niger Delta. So what he did was to show that every group has their history.
Yes.
The only thing you can now do is see how they package their narratives, which needn't necessarily be the same way that Europeans and Americans package their own.
Yeah.
Wait for it. Later on, a group that are known as post-structuralists did it even better by saying, for every group, there's a text. Text in the sense of how they explain themselves. The task is just yours to become literate in the text of the people.
Good. So what you're saying, you're saying is that every group of people have their own way of interpreting their life experiences, their histories, their cultures, their practices, what they know about the world, how they transfer it from generation to generation.
Nobody can interpret any group better than the group themselves. Authentic
people.
Yes. You'll be surprised to hear this. That is actually formalized in our method of studying people. Kenneth Dike borrowed from scientific study of language that we call linguistics and said there are two ways to interpret the way of life of any human group. One of those ways is Emic.
Emic.
Yes, EMIC. The other one is etic.
Etic, okay.
ETIC.
Okay.
Phonemic are collection of the sound that culture bearer or native speakers recognized as valid in the language
that they speak.
It does not matter whether you are a professor, whether you are anything. Once you are dealing with a language of a particular group of people, only those people know when you are getting the sounds
correctly.
Right.
Fantastic. And that is called
phonemic.
Phonemic.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait for it. Phonetic refers to all those sounds, however uttered, whichever way you utter it, but which may be wrong, because you are not a native. Emic refers to parallel of interpretation that the culture bearer presents.
Okay.
As he is correct when he speaks his language, just as he's right when he tells you this thing you are saying, oh, we don't have it. Oh. So just as he does that, and he's the only authority, in it.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether he never went to school or because when you are born, you start acquiring your language.
Yes.
We talk about language acquisition. If you are speaking the language you are born into, you have innate ability to acquire whatever language you are born into. So now, the same Pike says there's a parallel to that when culture bearer is interpreting his own culture, his social processes, his social structure. Only him knows what is correct and what is not correct. The other ones may be noise.
I like that.
Dike said, Africa has history, and I want to show it. He chose Niger Delta.
Okay.
He chose Niger. To show what you need to do is let the people themselves tell you their story. So it's not written down, but it's a text. Dike said they have their own text.
Yes.
That text is the verbal narrative.
Their oral narrative.
Oh, yes. So, and when he developed it, nobody could deny it anymore.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So one of the later historians you might know, and I'm talking about Afigbo.
Afigbo.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So in investigating how this plethora of Igwe this, Eze this, which we did not have originally, and which we should have no apologies for not having it originally. He used this method of collecting, ethnographically, how social organizations existed in Igbo land before the Guardian confusion of saying, oh, well, if you checked and they didn't have so-called centralized organizations where political power is expressed in one individual. Okay, impose it on them. Write a law that says let them give you whoever. And of course, it was so strange when it was brought on Igbo, such that the only in most places, what they did was to give them, people, fringes of society, people, troublemakers, they say, give them, let them go, do whatever. And they didn't know it was going to be turned on them.
You have heard how African history was distorted by colonial assumptions until Professor Dike began to challenge the false narratives. Now, let us open your eyes to how Elizabeth Isichei and other successive researchers restored the truth about African history.
But the point, anyway, is that when Afigbo studied it for his PhD work, University of Ibadan, he used
the same Dike's approach.
Yes.
So this is amazing.
Yes.
So, and I can see that you also, try to get us to understand
Yes.
that there are other people
Yes.
who have worked in this line. People who have done deep work about the Igbo people. Elizabeth Isichei.
Absolutely.
Yes.
The thing about Isichei, everything she has written that I have come across, one thing you will not fail to notice is what I call intellectual rigor.
Intellectual rigor.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Is present there.
Yeah.
And you know it because you don't color the facts with your sentiment. We know bad scholarship. You can say authoritatively that this is bad scholarship. If someone has already made up his mind, I'm just going to fulfill all righteousness in the name of research, and then give you what he has already.
His own bias.
It is the cardinal offense in knowledge production that should bear the name scholarship. It is the cardinal offense, what we call bias. Listen, bias again, not in the dictionary sense, but in the methodological sense of what I have told you, which is that you are leading your data. You are the one pulling your data to your own direction.
You see, instead of following the data.
Effective knowledge production should follow the data.
Fantastic.
Not lead the data.
Lead the data.
And Isichei, in this particular book, there's the other one, something Igbo history again.
That
yes,
one,
yes.
That has the Boku.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make, that one at least you can see her interpreting, even though relying on facts as collected in the field.
Yeah.
But this one, you can see how, if you like, raw. She has gone a step further.
Yeah.
So she takes crudely the way people narrated it to
what it is,
her,
the way
and
it is,
publishes it. Her determination to follow
facts,
yes, is such that here she more or less didn't do anything except to
compile
you
it and show you what she found out. I want our listeners to understand that Elizabeth Isichei did justice to facts.
She did.
That she found about Igbo people.
She did.
Especially in this work, Igbo world.
Yes. Yes.
So we should take note of it.
Yes. She is from New Zealand. Okay. She's a New Zealander by birth. Then married to an Asaba
man. Okay.
Yes.
So she's Igbo by marriage.
So I think she threw herself whole and entire.
All the love
into whatever she can inquire.
Fantastic.
About Igbo history.
Wow.
And Igbo cultural.
She not only fell in love with her husband, she
fell in love
with her Igbo-ness.
Exactly.
This is lovely.
That's the best way.
So it is important that all our viewers. Now here is our wife.
Yes.
Who fell in love.
Yes.
Not only with our brother.
Yes.
He fell in love with all of us.
Indeed.
And he, with that love, with that passion.
Yes.
With everything she's got, she looked at truth as it concerns the Igbo people, and she put it together in this book.
I think that's the best summary.
Amazing. So you were trying to mention something.
The only thing I want to mention is, you see, the way some of these people walked, starting from Dike, down to Isichei, up to Afigbo,
okay.
The way they walked so impressed anthropologists.
Yeah.
I think I have told you the story of Afigbo, where they were listing anthropologists in the world. They put him.
Fantastic.
But he himself will not claim that he's an anthropologist.
He said,
the point I want you to see is that the way he walked, which is follow
the
your
facts.
facts.
Yes.
Even in studying cultural histories.
Yes.
Now, made anthropologists feel this might not be one of us, but they are our good friends.
Fantastic.
So, and that's what happened here.
Okay.
Kenneth Dike is, as you know, a professor of history.
Yeah.
Now, Felicia Ekejioba was an anthropologist.
Okay.
Sadly, both of them are late now. Nobody will live forever.
Yeah, of course.
We miss them,
Course.
but yeah. So you can see both collaborated
Yes, in doing this
to
work.
sift facts from fiction.
I want to mention all the authorities that you have brought to our attention. And there is this magnificent character, an enigma of history. Mbono Ojike.
Is positively unclassifiable.
Wow.
In terms of scholarship.
Wow.
Sometimes when I think, I said, what sort of human being is this? His book, this is his autobiography.
The autobiography, My Africa, yes.
Good. So you are looking at Mbono's writing. You don't know if you are reading an economist, which he trained as. You don't know if you are reading an anthropologist. You don't know if you are reading a historian. There's a chart towards the end of this book where he went to the earliest time of recorded history.
Important dates in African history.
Exactly.
Yeah,
as far as it concerned Africa, you see it. And I tell you, the issue of follow your data or your information. Because if you don't, you suffer a very huge embarrassment. In my valedictory lecture, I warned, there was one man imagining himself to be smart in England this time, went and they contrived artifacts. And the idea was to show that prehistoric man existed also in England.
Wow.
And it rained.
Wow.
Yes, it will rain for some time. But when it will explode, it will be the biggest shame.
Yes.
And it did explode.
Professor Jesse Ezra has just shown us the dangers of dishonest scholarship, false claims, and manipulated evidence. Stay with us as he demonstrates how authentic historical discovery of Igbo land overturned long-held assumptions and reshaped what we think we know about the first human group to use iron.
So it works that way, but in the case of Mbono, it is the other way, the converse. Now, the converse in the sense, when I look at the chart you've just looked at now,
yes,
you find that before Frederick Anozie found in Ledger the oldest iron smelting site in the history of the world. Oldest in the world, because before the Ledger finds, it was the Hittites that were thought to be the first people that used iron.
Okay.
But when this happened, it turned out that it's Igbo land for the first time in the history of mankind.
Wow.
So, but the point is, Mbono, in 1930s, have already said so, though not with evidence.
Wow, 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 amazing.
So that's the thing about scientific fact.
Yes.
It is what? Constant. Compare it with what the fraudulent British man did.
Yes.
Okay? If it is not based on fact, I bet my shirt, it won't go far.
Yes.
Like they say in East Africa, Njiawongo, Fupi.
Njiawongo.
Njiawongo, Fupi. The way of the liar is short.
I like that. I like that.
So, but you can see, Mbonu.
Yes.
Is with the fact.
Yes.
And much later, evidence supported the fact. Wait for it again. Late 50s, early 60s, Thurston Shaw, the Cambridge born archaeologist,
yes,
dug up 3 sites in Igbo that established that Igbo monarchy in that part of Igbo land was flourishing in the around when 10th century.
10th century, wow.
Look at it here. Mbonu was able to get it 100%.
Wow.
Correct. He said, 900 is here.
Wow.
And now, when scientific evidence emerged, he supported it.
Fantastic.
So that's the thing about knowledge production. It's not a childish thing if it is not well grounded, supported by credible evidence, underlying credible, because we might come to it depending on where your interest is in this conversation.
Yes.
Somebody will go and say he discovered something at Owerri, that is the place, what do you call those people in Jewish creation myth? Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Rubbish. Absolute balderdash. Bet your shirt. It never existed. If you cook up that thing, it's just a matter of time.
It will just blow
because, and that's why what you are doing is important.
Yes.
Get people who know this thing to talk about this thing. Yes. We have them. Yes. But typically, intellectuals are very shy people when it comes to publicity. Yes. You were not likely to get them except you go and pull them and say, come and talk. Yes. Because what you tell us is useful to the community.
Yes.
That's why we talk about gown and town.
Gown and town. Yes.
If they don't cooperate very well, then there's a problem. Any society you see prosper, please quote me, it is cooperation between the gown and the town. But often, the gown that we have here, maybe because they are not used to such collaboration, it started and then it fizzled out. I think blame the Civil War, because the way our scholarship started was good enough. I have history of establishment of University of Nigeria. So the point I'm trying to make is that to establish it, you find a very firm collaboration between the community and the university. Yes. So what point am I making? Except you go that far, nothing will actually work, because you will be depending on other people to think for you.
Yes.
Okay. Please. Is it possible?
No.
If he's thinking for you, he will give you whatever really is not important to him.
Yes, you have to get.
Then you will be busy deceiving yourself that other people will produce and come and give to you. That is produce knowledge. It's not possible. You know that those people are pack of fools.
Fantastic. Okay, so this is great. You have just had a serious warning. No people can survive without negative consequences when they depend on others to produce knowledge for them. Now, don't go away, because the next discussion will reveal the depth and continuity of knowledge production in Igbo land. Okay, there's this other work.
Yes, this man, James Horton.
Yes.
James Africanus Horton.
Yeah.
He's an Igbo man.
Wow.
100%
Igbo man.
Yes.
And
Is there in his book?
Okay. Yes.
This book was published by Horton, 1865.
Wow.
Listen. In this book, he spelled Igbo I-G-B-O in English. Igbo.
Igbo.
There was no Igbo orthography at the time. There wasn't Igbo orthography at the time. The way he had his parents identify themselves.
Yes.
Anyị si ani Igbo tupu azụọ anyị n'oru, because both parents were slaves. But they were lucky, and it was happening at a time when the other great Igbo man, I watched one of your productions and you talked a bit about him, Olaudah Equiano. Yes. So now had worked with abolitionists.
Yes.
In Britain.
Yes.
And they had abolished
the abolition law had been done. Yeah.
Yes. So now Britain was then thinking of, what do we do about either these people we capture at sea, or already settled there.
Yeah.
So the issue of Freetown, Sierra Leone came up, or Libreville in Gabon. It's the same thing. Libreville is also Freetown.
Yeah.
Now, so it turned out that James's parents were among those taken to Sierra Leone.
Okay.
What I can't get is the mystery of how he was lucky. Maybe those who liberated them were also looking at people to train in a Western style education to help in the new society. He himself, you can look at the title of the book. Yes. Even Equiano also said a similar thing. That is, you needed to bring the Western style institutions to Africa because there's no more going back. So he was lucky. He went to school in Sierra Leone there. And then the amazing part was he got scholarship to go to Edinburgh University and then studied medicine. This man.
Wow.
So having studied medicine, he thought of what to do to his native people. You can see, he says West African countries and
Make
peoples. No mistake, the country he has here is not like you have Nigeria.
Not the one we have now. It's 18 something.
No. He's looking for the Igbo. He see Igbo as the country. He see Ibibio as the country. He see Baule as the country. Yeah, Eve as the country. That's his idea of country. The countries.
Yes.
So now, he trained as a medical practitioner, as a physician. When Anezi Okoro gave his Ahiajoku lecture, he referred to this man. Yes. And put it humorously, as only a novelist could do, novelist cum physician. He said, we are fighting with Sierra Leone about whom to claim him as their first medical doctor. Because in Sierra Leone too, he was the first. Yes, but we
the Igbos,
he's a native of this place.
Now, that was an important discussion on forgetting pioneers, historical identity, and the allocation of credit for intellectual achievements. Please stay to the end, as Professor Eze opens your eyes to the power of scholarship and the reason serious research is one of the greatest tools for development a people must possess.
See, I told someone, scholarship is perhaps the most wonderful thing humans have developed. In this book, I challenge you to, I think you have the resources to do this. Yeah. Order it. To our shame, I said it in my valedictory lecture. To our shame, it is actually University of Cambridge who saw the irreplaceability of this kind of work. Wow. And reissued it. Wow. They didn't edit it. This is just the way it was. What they did was to reprint.
To reprint it.
Which we should be doing here. But no, we are not. We are looking for people from our village to be vice chancellor of what is supposed to be a global institution. That's the kind of thing we struggle for. Okay? So, but we should be able to reissue this thing for public enlightenment. Then people will discover areas to go to. Yes. For collective benefits. Yes. Of our people. Yes. So, if you read this, the amazing thing. You see this farmers' headers problem.
Conflict, yes.
You see this Fulani pressure.
Yes.
On community people, it's here.
Wow.
No, it's here.
Wow.
In 1865.
1865.
Yes. Horton, after that training, he chose that place my parents are telling me we came from. He chose to come here.
Wow.
In an expedition and spend all the time, the inconvenience that go with it, okay, to study this place. So it is in his study of this place, Igbo land.
Yes.
And further afield to know connection with
other territories, yeah.
That he described the Fulani,
yes,
territorial appetite,
wow,
to dominate other people. Told story of Uthman Danfodio, how he said he saw a vision and Allah say this vast territory. There was no Nigeria, yes. I hope you know.
Yes.
So that there was this vast territory. Vast territory would be like Nigeria, Niger, Chad, Cameroon, all that. That Allah says he will give to you if you fight his war.
Wow.
In this book,
fantastic.
That he described the Fulani,
yes,
territorial appetite,
wow,
to dominate other people.
Wow.
The important thing is that it's from an Igbo.
Wow, this is great, because this is, you see, let me tell you what I'm hearing.
Yes.
And that you are setting us in the foundation.
Oh, thank you.
You are setting us in the foundation.
Oh, thank you very much.
And you are saying one leg is Professor Dike.
Yes.
The other leg is Afigbo.
Yes.
The other leg is Isichei.
Yes.
The other leg is Ekweano.
Yes.
The other leg is
Horton. James Horton.
James Horton.
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yes.
And
there are other people.
There are other people.
But be robust in your knowledge production, because if you toy with knowledge production, please quote me anywhere. Nothing else will work.
Yeah.
Truly committed to producing. After all, what rules the world?
It's knowledge.
Do you remember?
It's knowledge.
That is what changed all this. Knowledge production.
Knowledge production, yes.
And that's the way the world changed. If you think you are not progressing as a group, I challenge you, look at it closely. You find that your knowledge production is poor.
It's very poor.
It's not original.